And welcome back to Morning Talk. You were listening to KSVC 980 AM and 100.5 FM. Porter Huntsman and Dylan Nielsen alongside with you this morning, and it is time now for our radio roundup interview for today. This morning we are joined by Sevier School District Superintendent Kate Douglas and Principal of Ashman Elementary, Amee Roundy, and we appreciate the two of you taking the time to join us this morning.
Yeah, thanks for having us on.
Yeah, thank you for having us.
Always glad to have you, and it sounds like today we want to do a little bit of a spotlight on Ashman Elementary.
Yeah, I'm excited to have Mrs. Roundy here with us. Ashman Elementary is one of my favorite places. I compare it to Disneyland, honestly. It's the greatest place on earth. You go there, it's a K-2 school, so you're talking the younger students in our district, and it's a happy place. Great staff, great students. It's actually a really neat concept that I can't even remember how many years ago. It had to have probably been around 30 plus years ago. Back when I was a little boy, I went to Ashman Elementary, so I'm an Ashman alumni. I love the school, but back then it was a K-5. Even my first few years, it was a K-6 school. And over time, the two schools, Pavant and Ashman, in so many ways, at least the way that Superintendent Thorne explained it to me many years ago, it was causing a little bit of division in our community because you had two elementary schools and kids. I mean, I know when I ended up in the middle school, I didn't know half the kids in the community that were from Pavant, and I was from Ashman, and there was kind of a division, but the move that they made back then was to have, instead of two separate elementaries, to have a K-2 school and then a 3-5 school, and it's really united our community. It's been it's done a lot of good. I think it was a great move back then. But I attended the old Pink Building. I think some of your listeners would probably remember the old Pink Building for 4th and 5th grade. Some of the teachers that I had at Ashman are what made me want to become a teacher. So it's an awesome school. It always has been.
Definitely. I'm an alumni from there as well.
Awesome.
And I always enjoyed my time there. Awesome teachers, awesome staff. So why don't you tell us a little bit about some of the goals and things you're working towards there at Ashman Elementary?
So Superintendent Douglas hit on that we are very unique in that we're a K-2 school. So we get a chance to focus on those early learners and give them a great start into their education. And that is a big part of what we focus on there, is making sure that students are safe and comfortable and really get off to a great start in their education. Because it's their first experience in school, we really focus on collaborating with parents, making sure that they are a big part of their students' success, and collaborating with teachers. So we work hard on building those relationships and making sure that they're going to be successful. We do have about 460 students, so it's a lot of little kids. But it, like Superintendent said, it's an awesome place where everybody just works together, has common goals. We've got just an amazing secretary and custodian that just really looks out for all of our students. As far as our goals, we really focus on that early literacy and making sure that students have a great foundation for, their educational career. So we focus a lot on reading and writing and making sure that students are on or above grade level as they leave us at Ashman. We've got some great programs. Our teachers are really getting some awesome professional development. So we're focused on the science of reading and the most recent research on best practices and how to help students be successful. And, just those foundational skills that we know that they're going to need as they move on and start reading, multisyllabic words or reading for knowledge. So we kind of teach them how to read and then hopefully set them up for success to read later, to gain knowledge in other areas, as well as, math and science, and support their emotional and social needs.
You mentioned over 450 little kids all in the same place. That sounds like a party and a half. So how do you go about balancing, letting them be kids, letting them have fun, but also getting that education and that, structure in their lives?
Yeah, it is a lot of fun. Christmas time is electric. We're coming up on Valentine's Day, and so, kids are excited about the holidays and excited about all the things that they should be. So to balance that, learning can be so much fun. And so we do have, some guidelines that we need to make sure that we focus on the important skills that they need. So we've got a 3-hour literacy block in the morning that we really, it's intense and yet so much fun. The literacy or the literature that we're reading and the curriculum that we're using, it allows teachers to make learning fun for kids, as well as making sure that they have those foundational skills and that they're learning. Our students have never been better readers, and I attribute that to the amazing teachers, but also the research and the programs and the professional development that they've received to help these kids decode words and to write proficiently and all of those things. So it's a great place. We love to have fun. We've got an awesome art teacher, an awesome music teacher, as well as, kind of cross-curricular, making sure that they like being at school.
So real quick, not to interrupt you, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I wanted to hit a little bit on, as the research has, I like how Amee mentioned the research. I'm an elementary guy. I began teaching at 4th grade at Ashman Elementary and became an elementary principal, and I love reading. I always say reading is rocket science. It is so important, and it can be difficult to find out what a student is struggling with, which component of their reading they're missing to become a fluent, proficient reader, which we all know reading, if students are reading on grade level in 3rd grade, their chances of having success throughout their entire lives increases significantly. And what the research has shown is that as students enter kindergarten, there's a 6-year gap among students as they enter kindergarten in literacy, and there's a 4-year gap in math. So if you think about that, what that means is we have some of our students coming into school as a kindergartner that are already thinking and able to read or sound, or they have reading skills, early reading skills, as perhaps an 8-year-old might have. Mm-hmm. And then there's students that are 6 years below that. So that would be like as a 2-year-old would have. Mm-hmm. So our goal, and the same thing, it's a 4-year gap in math. Our goal is to provide early literacy and math skills to make sure every student closes that gap early. The other thing I love about little kids is there is something in their brain that I wish we could somehow harness and harvest. They can remember, they can close. We've made 8-year gaps with kindergartners and 1st graders and 2nd graders. By the time a student's in high school, it's hard to close a 2 or 3 month gap, learning gap. There's a power and just magic when it comes to early learning and literacy. So one of the things I wanted to talk a little bit more about was our all-day kindergarten options, which the research is coming in. It works. That's why we have bought into it. For several years, we offered it as an option. Ashman was a real leader in finding the funds to offer all-day kindergarten options for as many students as they could. So at first, they were offering for about a fourth of their students. And then over a couple of years, they kept finding grants, and they offered it to about half of their students. And you can correct me if I'm wrong on some of this, Amee, because she was right in the trenches making that happen. But what they found is those students that were even further behind that qualified for the all-day option, by the end of the year, many of them were outperforming the students that were in the half-day option. Wow. So it becomes kind of an ethical question. How can we continue to just provide this wonderful option that's growing students at tremendous rates to only half the students or a fourth of the students? And the state actually stepped up, the Utah legislature, and the funding became readily available to where we could offer all-day kindergarten for all students. And we're seeing tremendous success. The statewide research shows that 93 schools representing 22 districts in the state have over 70% of their kindergartners above benchmark. Just since the COVID pandemic, which really put us behind when it came to literacy, we're up 11% in kindergarten this year, 11% increase in kindergarten students achieving above readiness benchmark in reading since then. And obviously a lot of that can be accredited to more time. And I love how Amee mentioned it's not all, it is rigorous, but it's fun. The kids are having fun. There's energy. There's still plenty of time for the arts and physical activities and all sorts of fun programs. But time, quality instruction, and time with a good teacher gets you those kind of outcomes.
So obviously when you introduce a new program like this, there are going to be some challenges. Mm-hmm. So what are some of obviously we get some major benefits here from going to all-day kindergarten. So what are some of the challenges you see when you transition to an all-day kindergarten as opposed to a half-day?
So I'm going to maybe speak to maybe what Superintendent Douglas had mentioned first, and then I'll answer
Okay.
our challenges. So with Jill Porter, she was a principal several years ago, and as we looked at our data, we kind of dug into it and noticed that, like he said, a lot of our all-day students, which came with really severely deficient in lots of areas. And so we, obviously are working hard to try to get them caught up. But as we looked at our data, whether it be in the middle of the year or at the end of the year, many times those students were outperforming students that had preschool and other educational opportunities. And even in the middle of the year, we're like, oh my gosh, look at the growth and progress that they're making and why. And what are we doing, and how do we help some of those other students that are great, solid students, very capable of learning and making good growth, but just not as much growth. And so as we looked at that, that's when we decided to find some other funds and offer that to more students, so that at the end of the year, we wouldn't just have, this group of 25 students making that significant growth, but more students. And as we did that, we added another class, and then, looked at data again and looked at our programs and what can we do. And it was just so amazing. And as I've kind of talked with parents, what happens in a half-day class is usually they're there for about 3 hours. And so we're giving lots of instruction, and it's that early phonemic awareness, basic letters and sounds, and practicing it, numbers, but there just isn't enough time to then practice it. So they learn it, and we're going to practice it a little bit, but not as much as they really need to practice it. So then the students that would stay all day in the afternoon, they learned it in the morning, and then we're going to practice it and really enrich their learning. So it just deepened that understanding. And so, that is really kind of what we see is students learn it, and they really do a great job of teaching it, but then they get to practice it. So that when they leave kindergarten, those skills are deep. They know it. You don't have to ask them what sound does this letter make. It just comes to them automatic because they've practiced it. And with parents, life is so busy these days that sometimes they don't have time to practice it at night. Years ago, students would come to school, they'd learn, they'd go home that night and do, 30 minutes of homework or do different things to reinforce what they'd learned. But that's not always the case. Parents are working, and there's lots of other outside interference that they're not able to do that. So in the afternoon is when we can really solidify those learning targets that we've focused on, and students just know it. And we just love to see a student start out above instead of, just on grade level or a little bit behind and kind of unsure of themselves. Boy, those kids, you can ask them, what are the rules for the phonics patterns? Or why does this letter make this sound? And when is it going to be a soft sound instead of a long sound? And they just know it. So it's so awesome for us to see these students leave kindergarten excelling and above, because we all know that starting out behind or kind of a little bit insecure or unsure of ourselves isn't a great place, especially, in kindergarten or in these early grades. If they can leave above grade level, man, we're on the right step.
The learning is much, much deeper. And to kind of answer your other question, Dylan, my wife was a kindergarten teacher. And there are very few disadvantages all day. It's really hard to find any. One of the things I love that's really powerful for students' mental health and well-being is now, instead of a kindergarten teacher having 50 to 60 students that they teach every day, because they're seeing AM anywhere from 25 to 30, PM 25 to 30, they have their group of 27 students or 25 students or whatever their number is that year. I wish the kids would come in packages of 25, but they don't. Some years we have a lot of kids, some years we have fewer. But they're their kids. That's their teacher. The relationships are stronger. The teacher gets to know the students better, the behavior, the academic strengths and weaknesses, and we're just seeing nothing but positivity and goodness. I do hear from parents from time to time, and I wanted to mention quickly, I'll hear from a mom or a dad sometimes say, I just want my kid to only go the half day. And I think what it is that's causing that is the same pain I went through. I have 4 children myself. I'm a grandpa now. I cried every time I took my kindergartner to school that first. I don't want them to grow up. I cry when they graduate. I don't want my kids to grow up. And so I'm just like every other parent out there. But our kindergartners can handle it. It takes a couple of weeks, just like it used to take first graders a couple of weeks to get into the rhythm. Mm-hmm. But they're having fun. They're engaged. They're handling it extremely well in Sevier School District and statewide. In fact, most kids love it, and they don't see it any other way at this point.
Wow. Yeah. So, are you planning to phase out half-day kindergarten altogether?
So it's already phased out. Oh. This is already. We should have clarified that. We have extremely high percentages in our district. I don't have the exact numbers this year, but for this year and last year, this is our third year. So the year before, it's been in like 99% range. 98, 99% of our students are full-time.
Wow.
There are still a few parents that just opt to have their kids come in the morning and then they pick them up at lunchtime. Mm-hmm. But most kids, in our experience, want to stay. And we totally respect that. The parents and families, they are the most important factor in their child's education, and they have every right to have their child go for a half day. We respect that. We work with them. We bend over backwards to make that work and ensure that their students getting everything that we can give them. But the all-day option, we're having tons and tons and tons of success.
Once again, joined this morning by Sevier School District Superintendent Kate Douglas and Ashman Elementary Principal Amee Roundy. We do appreciate the two of you taking the time to join us this morning. Unfortunately, we are just a little bit short on time. But
no, great discussion.
Yeah, thank you for joining us this morning.
Thanks for having us.
Maybe one last comment. So I love what the superintendent said. You know, we can always just meet with parents and come up with a very best solution for their child. We are getting ready to do our kindergarten roundup. So that's when we have all of those incoming kindergarten students come to our school, get a chance to look around, meet the teachers, get signed up, get registered. We'll be doing that on March 19th at 9:30 or at 1:30. So you can come to either time. You don't need to come to both. Bring your preschool age student or incoming kindergarten student with you so that we can come and get to meet them. They'll get a chance to meet us and look around. It's a really fun day. It's kind of a Western theme. So they really enjoy that. But we look forward to looking for all of those incoming kindergarten students to Ashman Elementary.
Yep. And then just to reiterate, our students that are attending all day are accelerating. Even so, that 6-year gap I spoke of, if they attend all day, they make the students who are already ahead make gains above and beyond what they would have ever made, and the students that are struggling are catching up. So remember, listeners, read to your kids, read to your grandkids, read. The more a student is read to, the more likely they're going to read and have success in their life. And then speak to your kids. We're all guilty of looking at our cell phones way too much. We need to have conversations with our little ones all the time. That's how they build their vocabulary. So,
all right, great reminders. And again, appreciate your time this morning.
Yep, thanks for having us.
Thank you.
That's going to do it for our Radio Roundup interview for today here on Morning Talk.